this panel. My name is Leila Melendez. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Workforce Solutions Borderplex, which is the regional workforce development board. So I'm happy to be moderating this panel right now. We've got a really great conversation lined up. We're talking about what it means to be an employer of choice. And so for you all in the audience that are small business owners, I think this conversation will be really relevant, and I look forward to the conversation we have with our panelists, and then also any questions or comments from you all in the audience. So I'm going to ask the panelists to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about who they are and the organization they represent. The first is Mr. Tommy Cano with Cano HR Consulting.
Good morning, everybody. Tommy Cano, Cano HR Group. I've been in business now, small business. I've been in business now for close to 7 years. Been doing human resource for 21 years this year. I'm 25 years old, so you can do the math yourself. We represent companies in Texas, New Mexico, Nevada, Arizona, California, and all sorts of industries. So it'll be an interesting conversation today because all of those different industries have one thing in common, and that's employees and employee issues. So we'll talk about what they are asking for, the new generation, and all that good stuff. So be happy to be part of it at this point.
Mr. John
And good morning, I'm John Signorino. I know some of y'all know me because I see some familiar faces. First of all, I know this is a veteran conference. Who's in Army or was in the Army? Okay, on here. Okay. How about Marines? Marines, we got one. We always got one Marine. How about Air Force? No Air Force. Okay.
They're flying, right?
Navy. One Navy in the back. Okay. I'm retired Army. I was an Army pilot. I currently, the wife and I own the Papa Lock franchise. We're a full-service locksmith, and we have the franchise rights for everything here in El Paso, Husband, and Donna Ana, Las Cruces area. So, that's about it.
All right. Ryan?
My name is Ryan Buchanan. I'm here representing Freedom Janitorial as well as Environmaster Services. My boss, Willie Jenkins, couldn't be here today, unfortunately. Just a little bit about myself. 8 years in the Army, 4 enlisted, 4 as an officer. I got out in August, and I'm justice involved, so I'm in the Veteran Treatment Court program. And so my perspective on getting a job is very different than most people's, I would say. And my boss, Willie, was kind enough to offer me a position. So.
All right, thank you. Okay, so we're going to dive in. So when we were talking a little bit about preparing for the panel, John asked if we could get a sofa out here because he thought he was going to be going to some kind of group therapy session. So, just keep that in mind as far as what we're going to talk about. So I'm going to start off with like a pretty big question, and I'll ask all of you to answer. What do you think the term employer of choice means to you as a business, but also if you were a job seeker? Two different perspectives.
And I have the privilege of having both as a business owner and being a VP of HR for Fred Lloyd for almost 10 years. So I was an employee, now I'm an employer. And employer of choice to me is somebody that can offer you a job where you're gonna work from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. and earn $100,000, right? We're all looking for that employer. We're all gonna look for that employer. I can tell you that, that question probably 10 years ago would be answered differently. Now, what is the millennial looking for, the post-millennial looking for? Believe it or not, what we see a lot of is recognition, and employers, especially small businesses, they focus too much on the bottom line, and I guess every employer does that, and so they're not focusing on the newcomer. And even something as small as welcoming somebody that's just got hired, they don't know. If you look at it from the employee perspective and you're going to the office, you don't know what to expect. So to have somebody receive you and say, this is where you're gonna sit, this is what you're gonna do, it goes a long way. So recognizing them, and then if you can afford it, to have a growth plan, that would be the employer of choice, because these millennials are looking for recognition. And by the way, they wanna make $100,000 and work 2 hours a day, okay? So try to figure that one out. From an employer perspective, you have to look at what are ways that I can recognize my staff so that they, in turn, become me. I have 6 employees under me, and if they're sitting here in this panel right now, you wouldn't know the difference. And I always show them that I'm not your boss until I have to show them that I'm the boss, right? But other than that, we're all equal. And I do what they do what I do. I carry on the heavier burden of mediation and all the good stuff, but I'm trying to get them there. So, just a thought.
Just like Tommy was saying, you know, what that meeting was 10 years ago, I also kind of think, what's it going to be next year and the following? And I'm going to get, most of us are business owners or managers in the room. And I can tell you, hiring employees, keeping employees, everybody I talk to, this is the pain point of owning a business, okay, is employees. Right now, it's just like, I'm gonna use the term from real estate, you know, it's a buyer's market or it's a seller market, okay? Is it an employee market now, or is it an employer market? Think of it that way. Right now, it's the economy's doing great, we got low unemployment, getting the good people to come to you and stay with you is difficult. To answer your question, I think it's a culture. It's a culture in your business that meets the employee and your customer. Because without, you know, you can have the best employees, you can meet all the demands, but if you're not meeting the demands of your customers, you're out of business, right? Am I making sense there? Let's face it, and I just had a good conversation out in the hallway earlier this morning. Caterpillar is probably a leading industry, and they just showed a 6 or 8% loss here earlier this week. That's a good indication of where the economy is going. The economy, I predict, is going to, we're going to switch over to, instead of low unemployment, we're going to see higher unemployment. So that's going to put the ball back in the court of, as employers, we can be more choosers because there's going to be more employees out there. But again, it's a culture. I'm sorry if I ran long.
No, that's good. Ryan.
So the only millennial on the panel here.
I'm 29.
There's several.
So
I see nothing but millennials out there too.
to be honest with you, I think it's a matter of where you're trying to get your employees from. So like make $100,000 and work 2 hours a day. I made $80 today, and I worked from 11 o'clock, and I'm here now speaking. Like I haven't slept in 30 hours. But I think it's all a matter of how you treat your employees. Like my boss puts a lot of responsibility on my shoulders. You know, I'm not necessarily a leader, but in my organization, but he gives me a lot of tasks to complete that if they don't happen, like business will fail. Because they need more leeway to go and build their business. So I think as a small business owner, it's just about who you can put the trust into. I know there probably are millennials that only want to work two hours a day and make $100,000 a year. That's probably real. But if you can find the right people, and I'll say, I work hard because I am, I was arrested, right? And I had to leave the Army, and it wasn't what I wanted. So the mere fact that he gave me an opportunity to have a job, I will do anything for that man. I work hard for him because he gave me an opportunity. So I think looking outside of the purview of what you think about a person based on one incident, or like a lot of the employees that we work with are felons, convicted gun felons, convicted, multiple assaults, whatever the case is, and they work really hard for their employer, and our boss always makes sure to make sure that we're recognized and acknowledges that the fact that we do work hard for him, because there's not a lot of money to be made, pressure washing restrooms and kitchens, so it has to be something else, right?
Very good, thank you. So on that note, when it comes to employing job seekers that have historically been overlooked, which now in today's economy, those populations are now very attractive because of the skills and perhaps the experience that they have. So why would that be a distinguishing factor for an employer? The things that you said is giving more responsibility to an employee. Aside from just the traditional benefits and pay, what are those things that you're giving an opportunity to those folks previously underserved or underemployed?
You want me to start on this one? Again, with the millennial group. I was told not to call them that. I got to call them the current generation because they don't like the label. So anyway, so we talked about this in here prior to coming, and I'm going to get on top. Stop me if I get going too. Okay, they were the society formed them the way they are today. When they were kids, at 5 years old, at kindergarten, they had a key from the front door, and they didn't get to see their mom or dad to 9 o'clock, and they really got that feeling, hey, no, I'm just here in the world, no one really cares about me. They got that kind of feeling. So, biggest thing on this question is listen to your employees. What do they want? We told a story. They want a couple things. You mentioned it. Flexible schedules. And they want to be able to be at their meetings, at their school, and their family. I told a story of I had one of the girls that her name was Rebecca. She worked for us, and she calls me up one day and says, "I need 3 o'clock in the afternoon, whatever it was. I need off to go see my daughter at school." I said, "What's going on? Is there a problem?" She goes, "No, my daughter got this special award, and I really want to be there." So I said, "Okay." I said afterwards, I said, "What's your daughter's favorite restaurant?" And it happened to be Peter Piper Pizza. So I called my wife. I said, "I'm taking you out to dinner." To my wife. I said, she goes, "Where?" I said, "Peter Piper Pizza." So we made a point to take her, and they give you those tokens for the games and stuff. So I played, and I had to get going. I couldn't stay that long. So bought the pizza, had a couple pizzas, and grabbed the daughter, said, "Let's go play some games together, just you and I." So then afterward, I said, "I got to go." But here, I pushed all the tokens over to her. I said, "Here, go have fun. Here's all the tokens." And I took off. I got a text later and said, "Nobody has ever done that for me and my daughter before." And I really, you could almost hear the tears in that text.
Right.
So, case in point, listen to your employees. Sorry.
Very good. Very good. Okay.
And then he called me to go fire that person.
Yes.
Does anybody want to offer anything else?
I'll just piggyback off of what, you got to be very careful too though, because in life, those of us that are here, business owners and that are just strictly focused on the professional career, you got to balance your personal as well, okay? And you got to balance that when it comes to your business, because we see the millennial, but we also see that 40, 50, believe it or not, year old that is looking at already 20 years in the business, and that are probably looking at the millennial getting away with a lot of stuff, okay? And so the employer, they go from one end to the other. So you got to look at your balance. You got to look for those people that are non-millennials, that are looking for insurance benefits, that are looking to be taking care of their health now. Because obviously, being a border city, people just cross the border and they go take care of their medical, but you got to find that balance. The recognition is a must. It is a must, folks. And I will tell you that out of all the companies that we look and we represent, probably 10% recognize their employees. The rest, they feel, is just not enough money there to recognize. But then, looking outside the box, you see the owner driving up in a Ferrari or $200,000 vehicle. You don't think the employees are looking at that? Of course they are, and I get it. I know what your response is. Well, I work hard for this. Well, their perspective is they work hard for you to also get that recognition, and it's all it takes is recognition. I mean, beautifully done, and that's something that. But again, don't just focus on pleasing the millennial. You also focus on the rest. So it's a good balance.
Very good. So we talked a little bit about some examples. What are some other examples, like a broad range, a long list of different options that you might not provide the same things to everybody, but what are just some of the examples that motivates different employees that would make you, the term employer of choice is that the employee is picking you as the employer, right? So what is going to be that thing that sets you apart from another company that may hire them?
So it's not a black and white, and it's not a cookie cutter. It depends on the industry, and we see that often. You got to listen to the business. You got to listen to the employees, and by listening, it's what are they doing out there? We go to, for example, Starbucks, and we go pay $6 for a cup of coffee, right? When you can just go to McDonald's and pay 90 cents, whatever. But the reality is the ambiance. And Starbucks, if you look at the staff, which I do, you know, they've got tattoos, they've got pierced earrings and all everywhere, right? Piercings all over their face. They don't care about that. They care about the ambiance. And that's a different culture versus going into a bank, for example. And so you got to listen to the business. Flexibility is one thing that I hear a lot from employees. When we do the exit interviews and we talk to the employees, one thing that they always tell us, number one, they don't recognize me for my hard work. That's number one. My manager does not train me. There's no training. There's no, I'm not given the tools to better myself. There is no growth, which is number three. I'm stuck here. I need to look for something else. And number four, that I highly recommend is, you know, it may sound cutthroat, but whoever your competition is, you got to scout them. You got to scout them, because if you can be one up on them, and it's not necessarily just $1 more. It's not the pay, folks, because pay is 5 or 6 down there, okay? But what they're doing, the flexibility, allowing them to be part of the family, and just getting the job done concept is a big thing. So it's a hard question to answer because it depends on the industry, okay? But try to be as flexible as you can. Try to make them feel like they're at home, in other words.
Ryan, from your perspective as an employee, what are some of those things that have been of great benefit?
There's only a few things that really matter to me. You know, I grew up in a really small coal town in West Virginia. I've never had much, so money is not a huge deal. My wife and daughter are the huge deal. That's it. So as long as I can pay my bills and I get to spend time with my family, you know. So like I said, I've been up for about 30 hours, but tomorrow, like, I'll go home and I won't go back to work till 5 o'clock tomorrow morning after this is over. So it's nice. I get that time back to me when I do long hours like this. So I definitely appreciate that. And as I was like I said, I was an officer in the Army. The one thing that I think helped me the most was I always went to bat for my soldiers, even if it wasn't in my best interest to. Like, I would go out of my way to let them know that I always looked out for their best interests. It got me chewed out a few times, you know, but what I found was my soldiers respected me a lot more. Worked a lot harder for me when it mattered because I'd go to bat to them when it mattered to them. But yeah, so just being able to spend time with my family and pay my bills, and those are really the two things that I'm looking for. I don't need to be a millionaire. My daughter needs to be taken care of, and my wife needs to be taken care of, and that's it. And I want to spend time with them.
What she's saying here, that's really important if you're an owner. You know, listen to that right there. That's golden nugget right there.
So hire that guy.
We have 2 employees. I won't say their names. They can do we're a locksmith company. They can make keys for cars that nobody else in town can do. When some of the dealerships or garages around here say, hey, we got this car that can't start. We want this guy to come out to him because his reputation is, he's known throughout the town. They love that. These 2 guys, that's what they're doing. And how I got it was 2 things: training and equipment. We have some of and it's expensive. I hate, you know, when my wife sees those bills come in, you know, I just sent a guy off and spent training and new equipment, $12 grand 1 month. So that was a hard one to get through the check written. But anyway, that's painful. But but we're known for. We had just a case yesterday. Afterwards, the guy comes up, the manager of the garage. It's a big garage over. They had a car that nobody else could get fixed. No one can get it. They had issues with the immobilizer system in the vehicle. Sent my guy out there. Within 45 minutes, he had that car started. The owner of it, and I didn't see it, but they told the owner can run it out of the garage and hug my technician. I said, no, this car's, 10 other people, 12 other people looked at this car. Nobody else could fix it. You did it in less than an hour, and he
get this big head. I want more money. I just spent $12,000 on your butt. But no, that's it, because it is expensive.
Right.
But training and equipping those right people, sometimes that's what they want.
Very good. Along those lines, so we've talked a little bit about the current generation, the millennial generation. And regardless of our varying opinions, they're the current workforce, right? They are the future. And the economy is very much adapting to their needs. They're very tech savvy. They're very tech savvy in the real world. They expect to be tech savvy at their workplace, right? So how can employers keep up with that, with providing the technology that they're very much used to outside of the business walls? How can an employer ensure that the stuff that they're using, the equipment that they're using, is going to be just as appealing and efficient as those workers expect?
I can start. So, you know, I would consider myself tech savvy, but I don't need the newest, right? When I look at a piece of equipment, regardless of what it is, what kind of technology it is, it needs to be effective, because it needs to save time, regardless of what it is. So we have self-contained vacuum systems that we use when we clean, and to get up water, so we can put down gallons and gallons of water on your floors and then get it all up and it'll be dry. Those things are incredible, because if we didn't have that and we had to hand scrub all those floors, the job that took 4 hours last night would have taken us 10. But we're still using paper copies for invoices, and that's so easy to lose. We're finally starting to transition over to digital invoices, but we're doing both now. So you're spending 20 minutes doing invoices. The point is, when you're getting that technology, it doesn't need to be the new iPad or whatever. I don't care about that. Does it work well? Is it efficient? I don't care if it was made in '98. Does it still work? Does it make my job easier? That's what I'm looking for when I look at a piece of equipment.
We're franchise, and our franchise has a program called Paso, and it's all digital. Everything from our call center gets the call, they put it in digital, it sends out via text message and to alert the tech that they have a call, they log into the app, they accept the call, and then they'll say, I'm going to go with a car example, 2017 Camaro, and it puts out all the information pertinent to that car for our guys, pushes it out to them on their app. So they love it. Used to have manuals and no more of that. Invoicing, all digital. So, and our back end office loves it because they can track that, the payment and all that right down. And, used to was sit down, okay, I hate it. We're going to spend the afternoon on marking out payroll and stuff like that. Spits out a thing. There it is. I just put it over to ADP. Good. So there's advantages on my side too, but it comes with a cost, money to get that pay for that program.
And that's exactly what it is. And again, it depends on the industry, but so for example, we'll talk on behalf of some of the restaurants. Something as easy as hot schedules. So now, instead of going in and looking at a schedule, they go through their cell phone. They get the schedule on their cell phone. Something as cool as that is enough for some of these millennials or post-millennials. But it is, obviously, technology is expensive, and the maintenance of it, right? Because something happens, it crashes, you get a bug, whatever, and then here you go, having to spend all that money. But again, if you look at your turnover and the cost of turnover in comparison of, buying anything, these gadgets, it's worth it. For my staff, we went for, now we're going to save the world and we're not going to kill trees anymore. Because we do investigations, we do all sorts of work, human resource. But what I did is I bought iPads about a month ago, and now, because they saw mine, and I take notes, and those notes go back into my phone. I could be in bed, and instead of pulling out the iPad, I'm looking, that's what a reminder. So they saw that, and the moment they saw it, it's like, what is that? What are you doing? And the next thing, without asking for it, I went and bought them that. And you should see their faces now. And now they even went and bought bags, fancy bags and covers and all that good stuff. And it told me, obviously, that was just enough to get them maybe another month or two with me, you know, maybe a year. But now I have to look at what's next, because you always have to be moving with the same technology as well.
So how do you stay current on that? How do you keep up with that? It is expensive to, I mean, that's something we encourage employers to do, is constantly invest in their employees,
Yep.
find different opportunities to keep them happy. But how do you stay current on what that is? What are some resources that you all look to? Do you all do peer interaction, you know, or amongst your industry? What are
So
some
I touch other professionals in that industry. I'll even go to my CPA and say, do we have reserves? You need to start talking to your CPAs, and they'll do some type of planning for you, and say we need to set aside for recognitions for you know, keeping up with the demands of technology, and that's really all you do. You go to the experts, and you know, businesses that I touch, even attorneys will tell them, if you have the right consultants, you know, they're going to take you a long way. And I think the consulting should not just be HR, a CPA. It should also be, what about technology? What about training? What about development? You know, who are the experts? If you try to do it in-house, they're not going to listen to you folks, unfortunately. They're tired. It's the son and daughter concept, right? But somebody else tells them exactly what you've been telling them, they're going to pay attention to them. So that's my way, and that's what I've seen, is you go to the experts and say, tell me, come and do a little presentation and see what we can do. And that's one way of keeping up with it.
For the veterans in the room, anybody been to Boots to Business? Okay. How about taking an EBV? Okay. It's an entrepreneurial boot camp for veterans. That's, and I'm gonna look at it. How about Outward Bound? IVMF. I know she's here. And anyway, these are programs for veterans who want to become entrepreneurs. And then it gets to, we have, once you're a graduate of one of the EBV programs, I happen to go to Texas A&M when I do mine. Get with me offline after this. I'll talk more about it. I don't want to waste everyone's time if you're interested. So, but on that token, then we have, once you're a graduate, then there's a yearly conference. And a yearly conference, they push out, and then we do it in Dallas. And it's a 4-day event, and it's just latest technology for and the veterans, what different programs. And it's just not just, you know, what we're talking about here, but it's a thing. And it's like $100. Pay for your room, all your meals, everything. It's really worth it. But you got to be a graduate of. But we'll talk more about it. Okay. And that's where I get a lot of my information about new technologies, new trends, and stuff like that. Sorry.
Resources.
It's a great resource. Thanks.
Yeah, for me, I'm not a huge, like I said, I'm not a huge tech guy. Like I can operate it. I know how to like go into the BIOS of my computer, and you know I know generally how to get around on a computer and a phone. But like as far as new software and everything like that, I usually have no clue what's going on. Like I only have Facebook. And that's
I give mine over to my daughter.
So like.
Yeah, go to your daughter, go to your son.
What happens is generally the younger crowd, like I say that, you know, I'm talking like early 20s, 18, they'll tell me about things and then I'll go and like look at it, right? Because I'm like, oh, that sounds neat. Like I didn't know Waze was a thing. I'm still using maps. Apparently you can get places faster. I think just having those conversations with people that are a little more savvy than you, or you know, they're interested in that technology field will keep you up to date, keep you pretty current. I know that's all I have.
Thank you. So I'm gonna try to take advantage here and maybe get a little bit of free HR consulting right now. So our organization is about 45 people, 45 very distinct, different personalities, histories, skills, experience, and there's that spectrum, the range when we talk about technology or experience and skill. We're trying to stay current and be an employer of choice for the folks that are wanting to enter the workforce, right? The millennials, even high school students that are transitioning from high school and into college, we're encouraging employers to hire them and give them opportunities. Appealing to that population, taking what they can offer you, being attractive to them, but then also staying attractive and staying relevant to your veterans and the folks.
Down the middle, and we start asking the crowd, tell me a word that you think of, first word you think of when you think of the word manager, right? And of course, to answer your question, I mean, you start hearing a lot of, you know, manager, oh my God, strict, unfair, favoritism, and you can imagine. And then of course you say, okay, who's your mentor? Who do you consider your mentor? My grandfather, my preacher, whoever. And give me a word, you know, tell you the truth, tell you how it is, blah, blah, blah. If you do the same with your go-getters and your come-and-get-me's, it's gonna tell you what you need to do as a business. The come-and-get-me's, they'll say, well, you know, I've been working here 10 years and I deserve a 25-cent raise. You know, that's a come-and-get-me. The go-getters want that, you know, growth pattern. Do you have it? Do you have it in your industry? Do you have different departments that they can be taking over to get to that level? Because again, the come-and-get-me's, although they don't want anything, but they complain about everything, right? They'll blame the go-getters because they're making their job a lot harder. You've got to find that balance and see what is it that they want. Sometimes they just want to be recognized alone, not in front of everybody. Sometimes it's that 25 cents after 10 years, you know? And there are some people that I've come across and they're okay with being a receptionist. And, you know, I think you have a lot of talent. I think the way you answer the phones, I always see you reading books. I did that to two of my ex-employees that, you know, we're all constantly reading. And I said, you know, I need that person in my department. Why? Because we're human resource and we have to be reading. But when you become the VP of HR or director, you don't have time to read. So you get your staff to read for you and tell you, you know, this is what the law is saying. So you try to find ways to do it, but they didn't want to get into the investigation. They just wanted to be answering phones. So try to find the balance. It's not going to be an answer that I can give you because of the industry, but I can go in there and research it from your own staff will tell you. This is what we say, listen to your business. That means listening to your employees as well. So.
Can I make a plug for Tommy here? No, Tommy gives a class over at Small Business Development Center. Do it. We're getting into a realm where you can get yourself in trouble. You know, you treat this guy this way because that's what he wants. This guy sees this, and now he's going to have a complaint. Okay, gotta be careful. You want to get yourself in trouble as a business owner, HR and payroll. Those two things. You know, most of us, whatever we're in. I'm a lot. Okay, you know, you're most people. I'm a baker, and you just kind of I'm doing it myself. And I got too big, so I'm hiring an employee. Then next employee, you're a baker. You got to be able to put that HR hat. And you might not want to be in. I'm not an HR. My wife's more. You know my wife.
Yeah.
My wife is more into the HR than I am. And I really should have a career. But
when you meet that 12,000 expense, you call them and get you fired. So
exactly. So, but anyway,
He's on retainer for you.
no, but you don't want. Okay, I'm a baker. I'm a locksmith. I'm a mechanic. I don't care. But you gotta have some knowledge of HR. You're not going to be an HR specialist, but you gotta know. Hey. If this, yeah, exactly. That's a great word. Red flag. This is. You know, because employees they get online all the time. They're mad at you. They can Google and say, oh, if I can make him say this, or if I can make him do that, that's a lawsuit. I'm going to go for him. Okay, and so you got to have some knowledge of HR. Just like you have to have knowledge of payroll, you got to have knowledge of tax. You don't have to be the expert of it. Have knowledge.
Thank you for the advertising. It goes away, but whatever.
Give it to my wife. No, serious. Take his. It's not my. It's.
And they're
it was
coming up.
pretty cheap.
Yeah,
Recently.
those HR sessions. We actually don't even charge. The SBDC does that. The HR sessions are coming up at the beginning of the year, and there's 5 sessions, and it started with 3, and now it's grown into more. You know, one thing that I'll throw just very briefly, because you have, you know, January 1. January 1 is a big date for you folks, especially your business owners, because we have that new minimum wage for salary exempt employees. And so we're right now in talks with SBDC because they reached out to us to talk about, you know, how employers should change, what are the impacts if they do change their staff, can they afford to bring them up to $35,000, which is $684 a week now. So yeah, we start doing those sessions. So we talk the art of hiring, firing, unemployment tax management, how to build your handbook, you name it. We have a variety of sessions, I-9 training and all that good stuff. So yes, it's becoming not an expert, but knowing enough to see where those red flags are.
Any other comments before we ask the audience?
I would just say, just back to how to stay appealing. For me, and it's going to be different for every individual, right? When I go to work, I want to be let off my leash and just let me go. Like, I don't need you standing behind me to tell me what to do. Let me off my leash and let me go, and I'll take care of it for you. That's how I operate. That's how I like to work. And if I have somebody standing over my shoulder, I will slow down on purpose. And so when I was, as a leader, I always made sure to give everybody just enough leash, right? Here, just enough leash. And then if they can maintain that, then let them do it, right? If they can't, rein them in. But don't have them on the choker chain to start with, right?
Okay.
But give them support.
Exactly.
If
Yeah.
they need to know if they have that lifeline back to you,
Yeah.
or if they get in trouble off the field.
Yeah, like I really, my past commander, anytime I had an issue, I could call him, and like there was no fear of repercussions. Like I would call him, like, hey sir, I got this going on. My wife's got an appointment for when my wife was pregnant, and he'd be, oh yeah, don't worry about it. Did you get this done? I'm like, no sir, I'll come back tonight and do it. And he'd be like, oh, don't worry about that. It was the little things like that motivated me to keep working really hard for certain people.
Okay, great, thank you. So we've got a few minutes for some questions or comments from the audience. Yes, ma'am.
First of all of you guys, thank you so much for saying, Ryan, your story is amazing. I totally want to talk to you later about something.
Okay.
So I own a soft skills training company, and right now we're small. I use a lot of contractors because I don't have full-time employees. But it was interesting, what do we call them now? The current workforce is I have an editor that I use every day, and the gentleman who takes care of my internet, who takes care of my website, he's of my same generation. So it's easy right now to recognize them because when we have a meeting, we come to my house, I cook, they laugh, we play. So it's super easy and super fun. As your company grows, how would you go about recognizing people in a larger company? Right now, like I said, or even how do you recognize your contract employees that I use? I have 4 people that I use for contracting, and I'm not sure I'm recognizing them well. They come in, they do their training for me at a client, here's your money, have a super great day, call you when I need you again. I don't think that I'm recognizing them based on some of the information that you all have given.
Well, first and foremost, contract employees is almost a contradiction because if you call them employees and there's a lady that's standing out there, you got to meet the demands of an employee. Okay, Homeland Security will ask you for their I-9s, so you got to be careful with that. Contract labor is us, right? I do contract labor. When they hire me, I have my own company, my own logo, my own clientele. If you are bringing in these people to do work for you and you're directing them and controlling them, that's a definition of an employee. Okay, so be careful with that. But to recognize even the small ones, as I'm hearing you talk, you're saying to come to my house, we cook.
We play.
From an HR professional standpoint, I'm like,
That's what I'm saying. As a small
Startup.
business
Right.
owner,
yes.
I don't have an office. My office is at my house at the kitchen table on Thursday evening at 7:30. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Oh, trust me, we don't have an office. So
See,
all of
but
my
that's
staff
okay.
works from their own home.
Oh, okay.
So,
And
but
see, my
because we're
news
firing people at offices.
Oh,
I would
okay.
go to your house and have to fire contract labor, but.
Don't
But-
fire them. They're amazing right now. But again, as a small
Yeah.
business,
Right.
What are
This
some
is what I'm
resources?
doing.
Is there like a place, are there places for her to conduct employee and, business,
Is that your?
in a way that you can recognize them, but, perhaps now we've uncovered, your willingness to have a connection.
Mhm.
Maybe that's too close of a connection.
well, and it could be, again, because usually for some of us who started small businesses, guess who your business associates are? Everybody that you hang out with at the gym, at church,
Right.
where at Walmart, these are your peeps.
Sure.
But we do have places that we go for, but again, what I do, I actually conduct business at someone else's office.
Right.
But this I
you know,
recognize
listen,
them.
and again, we're all different age groups and generations. Listen to what you kind of get a feel for what they want. And listen, let's just, you know, we got two
Free
ears, one
food
mouth.
is
Keep the
what
mouth
they-
closed and listen more, right? And so, listen, just listen, and they'll tell you what they want. Now, something that we do, and it's just happened. Every Christmas, and we do it more than that, it started at Christmas, we take everybody, invite your family, invite your kid, close it down business, turn off all the phones, everybody, we use Peter Piper Pizza because that's where the kids go. And I it's just happened. I said, okay, go play, the guys go to cake, and then, but usually all the wives, or the spouses, will stay at the table. And the kids and the dads, or, you know, will go play. Guess what? That is a bank of information. Because if you come up there and say, well, what does Joey, how's Joey doing? And you ask the wife that. Joey won't tell you. The wife will tell you. And dude, man, it's such great information. I'm like, oh, can I write this down? But yeah, I do that. And I didn't. It just happened. It just, boom.
Very good.
Yeah, that's
All right.
if you could do something like that.
Great.
Okay?
Any other questions?
Do we answer your question, by the way?
You did.
Okay.
You did.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Oh,
Any-
I was curious.
Sure.
What's your industry then?
I run the Workforce Development Board, so our organization, our headquarters is about 45 people, but we contract out, we hire companies that run our workforce centers. And we cover the 6 counties in far west Texas, and we have about 8 different centers where we have case managers and counselors available to people to help them find jobs. So we run actual centers, but we also have a staff that goes out and visits with employers and talks to them about helping them find talent. And so right now, this is very much at the forefront of what we do, is understanding from what employers are looking for, and then helping them find the best match and the best talent for them. So amongst our entire organization, we are at about 150, 170 people, but our nonprofit organization itself, just the Workforce Board, is about 45. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question for Mr. Cano. Since we're on the border and a lot of businesses here employ LEPs, limited English proficient people, what is the best practices in HR or protocols in place that you've seen work in dealing or providing adequate language access from an HR perspective?
Excellent question. So what we do, we are, you know, aside from all the other professional HR, your concept of HR is they just go and fire. So we teach, we do a lot of different things. We create policies, and part of that is that we're starting to do English and Spanish, okay? And if you include that and you make it to where you want to make a bilingual environment, right? Remember we talked about culture and environment. Yeah, if you do that, that helps them tremendously, because that going in there, it helps them create. What we see, people that come across border and they want to learn the English language, you got to be careful, because you speak to them in Spanish and they speak to you in English, right? So that's kind of already an indicator that, okay, so let's work with them and develop their English. So, but if you make it diverse, if you make it an English, Spanish handbook, posters, all of that, that is inclusive, and that, you know, they'll respect you for that. So, to answer your question?
Yes.
All right, so if there aren't any other questions or comments, I want to thank you all and thank the panel. Round of applause.